Happy Tuesday, everybody. Today is April 14th, 2020, and today I've got Jeremy Beck on the podcast to talk about a goal that he was able to achieve last season. All right, welcome to the Fall Podcast. Today is episode 109. I am your host, Aaron Blasey, and welcome to quarantine, week number 5, I think. I don't even know. It's crazy. Everything's blending together now. I don't even know what to think of this stuff. I'm just ready for it to be over. I know turkey season for me is starting this week, and I can't be any more excited for that. So, been scouting birds every morning. My wife and daughter and I have been taking a lap every morning around the property that we can hunt. And there's birds out all over, so hopefully they'll be there come this weekend, and we can get after them. But, today's a good podcast. I don't have Justin on with me. He still has been away. I actually recorded this with Jeremy back a week ago, I think, or 2 weeks ago. I can't remember. But just getting it out today. And, it was a good one. Jeremy, he's from Wisconsin. Solid guy, just really passionate about what he's doing, and he actually set a goal for himself last year. And what he wanted to do is he wanted to go to 3 different states and kill 3 different bucks. So he goes to North Dakota, he goes to Minnesota, and he goes to Wisconsin. So pretty cool stories, 3 awesome bucks. And at the end of this, we kind of get into a little bit of, I wouldn't say a rant, but just some of our opinions on what's going on in other states right now, and how their fishing game are handling things, and how hunter on hunter bashing, like hunters bashing other hunters about what they're doing, and how they should be doing things, is actually going to probably kill the hunting industry, if you want to call it that, rather than like the anti. So it's pretty unique twist at the end. If you guys do want to stay after we do talk about all these deer, but stay on there for, it's probably like 20-25 minute little talk about that. We did have to cut it short. My daughter ended up coming down, and nap time was over, so she wanted to see Dad. So I will have Jeremy on again. We do want to talk a little bit more in depth with what we're kind of getting into at the end of the podcast, but for now, this is what we're going to be talking about. So just want to thank you guys, for the support and everything you guys are doing for the podcast. We're growing like crazy. Thank you very much. If you guys are looking for any, deals or promo codes on, any of the products that we are using that we have codes for, go to iamhumanimal.com and select, the partner tab on there. Look for the codes, use those codes, and save a little bit of money. So with that being said, I'm going to kick over to this interview with Jeremy, and thank you guys for, like I said, the support, and stay healthy out there, stay safe, and we're going to get out of this, I promise. All right, we're back today on another podcast, and I'm actually keeping the Wisconsin trend alive. So I had Dan Infald on a couple episodes ago, and then I had Keegan Zemer, one of my coworkers from Wisconsin, on, and today I've got another Wisconsin cheesehead. I don't know if I can call you a cheesehead or not, but you are over in Wisconsin. Jeremy Beck, welcome to the podcast, man.
Hey, thanks, man. And yes, you can call me a cheesehead.
I gotta give Wisconsin people a little bit of crap, because I'm a Lions fan, not a Packers fan. So I don't know if you're a football fan, but I got to get my blows in when I can, because the Lions they haven't been very good.
No, to be dead honest with you, I honestly could care less about sports. Once it's hunting season, it's all in the woods. Yep,
I don't blame you, man. Well, for everybody out there that doesn't know you or have never heard your voice, kind of give everybody a rundown of who you are, where you're from. They know you're from Wisconsin, and maybe how old you are.
Well, I'm Jeremy Beck, 32 years old, from La Crosse, Wisconsin, and I'm a welder for a fab shop in La Crosse.
Awesome, man. Like, how long you been doing the welding thing?
I got 13 years in this year.
Wow. So you've been a grinder for sure.
Yes. No, and I love it. So
good deal, man. Well, you and I have kind of been talking a little bit about your season last year, and I want to kind of preempt a little bit of what we're going to talk about here, but you set a goal for yourself, and I don't see a lot of people setting this goal for themselves, but ultimately you accomplished it, and that's what was really cool to me. And, your goal was to kill, 3 bucks in 3 different states with a bow. When you told me that, I'm like, okay, I got to talk to you a little bit more. I got to figure this out and how you did this. But I guess the first question I'm going to ask you is, through your hunting, did you figure out, finally come to a point where you're like, I need to set a higher goal for myself or a higher standard? And is that why you set this goal for yourself?
Well, I kind of grew up like you, where I've always had private land to hunt. And I've got to a point at our farm in Wisconsin to where I feel like I can pretty much kill a buck every single year. And it actually happened. My buddy Scott Lesky, he's at the same point. The guy's killed like 13 deer in a row, nice bucks on his home farm. And he just wanted a different challenge. So he jumped over to Minnesota and did some public land. And his first year, he killed a nice 120-inch 8-pointer on public land. And I kind of thought to myself, like, well, shit, I can do that,
Yep.
So 2018, I did the same thing. I tried to go do that and got skunked. Realized it wasn't as easy as it looks. So the next year, 2019, another thing too I was going to bring up is 2018. That was my first year. I kind of hang and bang and run and gun style was like kind of the cool thing, So what I did was I went to Farm and Fleet and I bought this Millennium stand and 3 muddy sticks and like a ratchet strap and strapped them all together. And I thought this was no backpack straps or anything. So I had this janky ass kind of run and gun setup that I used to carry in the woods with me, heavy as hell. And I actually hunted with that on all the public land for 2018 and wasn't very successful, obviously. So bring into 2019, I actually went to a couple trade shows, and that's where I met up with Cody DeQuisto and Johnny Utah. And they're the ones that got me kind of hooked up with XOP. And I actually got a mobile setup, and they showed me how to pack it and kind of be most efficient with it. And so going into 2019, that was one of my goals also, was I did not hunt out of a single set stand this year.
So your goal was just to strictly hang and bang and just run and gun and just try to get tight on these deer then?
Yeah, just more than anything, I wanted to switch it up and get aggressive, because I noticed something at my home farm is throughout the years, and I was just talking to my dad last weekend about it actually, is you can watch the deer trails now, and they have changed drastically. Those deer know where those stands are, the set stands.
Yep.
And I kind of set up my stands this year. When I'd carry my stand in, I'd actually get off. I'd actually base my stand off where set stands were. And I'd get off them about 50 yards, and it was unreal the amount of deer that I was having come right under my stand just by doing that.
That's cool. And I bet you that was a huge learning point for you, or learning curve that, like, wow, it opened your eyes a little bit more of like, light bulb moment. Like maybe this mobile thing is probably, there's some truth to it.
Oh, absolutely. And being fast, efficient, and quiet with it too. And that's why I think coming down to, there's probably a few different mobile setups that are really good right now, between the custom gear out, Lone Wolf, and XOP, I think are kind of the top 3. But they kind of have like a kit all set up for you. The sticks all, lock in together. Everything's just fast, quiet. They got the silencing tape now. It's kind of foolproof. I'm not an expert with it by no means, but even I was able to do it.
Yep, definitely. So going into 2019, then your goal was to get a little more efficient with the hang and bang setup, but also pick 3 states out and try to kill 3 bucks, 1 in each state. So when you were going to pick out your states, was it something like, I want to go here because of this and here because of that? Or was it just like, this is where my better opportunities are? Or was it a tag process? Like, how did you pick out your states?
Well, where I started the 2019 season off was North Dakota. And how that one got brought up was, I actually have a friend, Nate Schroeder, that's been going out there for, probably 5 years. And so he's been working his way around the state, and they haven't had a lot of success out there. But 2017, when they were out there, they had brought back some good pictures of some good bucks, and they just never got on and never got the job done, but they were in the right area, you know? And so he invited me to go. So it was just me and him. And so that's how we kind of picked North Dakota, was I had kind of a shoe in through this guy. And I mean, if anyone knows this, like you probably, hunting out of state, half the battle is just finding a spot.
Yep. Or were you hunting public land too?
Yep, that's public land.
Yep. So I mean, that's a big feat in itself, is just trying to find a spot where the hell to go.
Right. So I benefited a ton by him doing all the legwork for 5 years that I didn't even know about. And, you know, another thing I was going to bring up too is that goes back to, you hear a lot of these people like, oh, I did all this e-scouting on Onyx and going on Google Earth and whatnot. I'll tell you what. So just out of curiosity to see if I could do it, I marked a bunch of spots on Onyx before we went out there, and that I thought were going to be some money spots. And we got out there, and some of the spots were nothing but pasture, and there were 200 cows in it. Or, you know, a spot that you thought was like a nice ravine with a creek running through it was just a dried up creek bed with grass mowed down from cows that had been in there all summer long. You know, so what you think you see on these e-maps isn't exactly what you're going to get to when you get out there.
Right. And that's something I kind of look into when I'm e-scouting as well. It gets you to a certain point, in my opinion. You know, definitely if I'm looking to go 10 hours away, or, I mean, you know, you're looking to travel to save you a little bit of time to get you in the right area, you know, maybe get some ideas down. But then when you get boots on the ground, I feel like every time I've done that, it's like, wow, it's a lot different than what I thought it was. And yeah. I think a lot of guys can vouch for that. So I think e-scouting can only get you so far, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why one thing that I would tell anyone to do is don't have one spot, have 20.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So pick a town, and I don't know, however far driving wise you feel comfortable, but to me, I'd say like an hour. So if I pick a spot that I think looks decent, I go basically like an hour circle around that spot and start marking some places, you know?
Yep, for sure. So going to that North Dakota spot, their season probably opens 1st of September, I'm going to guess, or somewhere right close there?
Yeah, last year actually was its earliest opening date, and that's why my buddy Nate was like, dude, we got to jump on this, because I think it was August 30th.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, so like you're guaranteed like everything's going to be in velvet.
That's sweet. So,
and that was one thing we wanted, was when we went out there, I wanted a velvet deer.
You want to get a velvet deer? I mean, everybody does. I want one.
Yeah, well, and like honestly, if there would have been 2 deer standing out there, 120-inch buck, full velvet, or 150, I would have shot the velvet, hands down, no questions asked.
Really?
Like I mean, how many people can say they shot a velvet deer?
Not a lot.
Most. I mean, I think there's only a few states you can even have an opportunity at it.
Yep. Yeah. So when you went out there, you know, finding your spot and everything, were you trying to set up more on food that early? You know, like green fields, or were there even any green fields, or what was the public land? I mean, break that down for us a little bit. Was it just timber, or what was it?
No, it's a lot of open land, and timber is extremely non-existent. You're looking for definitely the green fields, and honestly, if there's 2 fields side by side, you look at the one that's the darkest green, and that's where the deer are going to be. It's pretty much a hands down. One thing I'd say is, like, if you look out there too on the e-maps, you're going to look at spots that look like, wow, this looks like a patch of woods. Well, not out there. It's normally just like sagebrush.
Mm-hmm.
But this sagebrush it's big. You know, you're talking 7 to 10 feet tall, and you would not believe the amount of deer that'll pile in there. We actually seen, gosh, I think there was like 13 mule deer pop out of this spot. That, I mean, I wouldn't have bet that there was 5 deer living in there. You know, like I don't know how they all fit in that spot. Gotcha.
So, you know, when you guys got there, did you do a lot of scouting from a distance the first couple days, or were you just set an observation stand, get in, and just adapt from there?
No, we definitely glassed. We'd get up on hilltops, whether it was in a pasture, because there's some pretty good mounds. And we had one spotting scope. My buddy brought his spotting scope, and I just had binoculars. So we'd get up on these high points, and that's all we'd do. He'd head one way, I'd head another way, and we'd just glass. And the biggest thing to do is just kind of watch these side hills with all this sagebrush, and the deer would funnel out of there and head down to these green fields, and one thing I noticed that was kind of odd, and my buddy noticed it too, was all the deer were back to bed before dark.
Really?
Which was way different than around here.
That is. Is
Like
it the heat?
all-
Do you think it was the heat to do with it, or do you think it might be a predator thing? Because I know predators out there are pretty thick as well.
That's funny you say that. That's what we heard too. We heard coyotes were extremely bad out there.
Yep.
We didn't see any coyotes, but the coyotes and the heat thing could definitely be a theory. I don't know. I didn't see a correlation, but like I watched several deer bed down probably a solid hour before dark.
Wow. I'm just wondering if it was one of those things that, like, they were probably bedded most of the day. They get up and they're going to walk a little ways to eat and then maybe go bed back down, wait for it to get cool after dark, and then maybe come out in the fields again after dark. I wonder if that's a little bit of what they were doing.
Yeah, that could definitely be. You talk about it being hot. When I actually went back to go get my buck, I actually kicked a small buck out of a creek bed, and he was actually bedded right in the water.
Oh, really?
Yep. So I thought that was kind of neat for cooling down.
So to get to your buck, I mean, did you see your buck from afar while you were glassing? And he was probably amongst a whole bunch of other deer, because I've hunted out in Wyoming early like that, and I mean, there's a ton of deer together. So you're probably seeing a lot of different bucks, but were you like found a spot and kind of move in that next day? Is that kind of how it went down?
Yeah, we set up. My buddy took off. I don't know. He was probably a mile away from where I was, but we had watched the night before. I actually set up on this high point, kind of overlooking where I could see these fields and all this sagebrush. And I watched that night before. I watched 3 what I would call shooters, so 120 plus deer, head down out of the sagebrush onto the field. And then I seen several doe and fawn too, and smaller bucks. We seen the entire time, we seen this group of 5 little small bucks. The biggest one was like a little 6-pointer. And so we watched them all work the way down to the fields. And I videotaped them the night before, and the buck I actually shot was not in this group, but we seen him the morning prior kind of work his way back up. And he actually worked his antlers on some trees, and it was pretty cool, but that was at like 350 yards away from where I was. So the next day, I told my buddy, I'm going to get down. I thought it looked like a tree I could get in. So I took my XOP setup and I went in at, I don't know what time it was, noon or something like that, and had to cross a bunch of fences, work my way down into this creek bottom, and I walked this creek bottom, and as I'm getting up to this one tree that I was kind of in between, if you can picture a hillside full of sagebrush, and then it comes down to probably like 50 yards of just tall grass, like we're talking 4 or 5 feet tall, and then one lone tree, and then the field. And I thought if I could set up in that tree, I could pretty much cover all that grass,
Yep.
Where they're crossing. Well, anyways, I get up to this tree, realize it's half the size of what I thought it was. And the branches that spread out, I mean, shit, they weren't 4 feet off the ground. And another thing too is I got up to that tree, kicked those 5 bucks out of there.
Oh,
those 5 little bucks, which goes back to just being sloppy, careless, sloppy, not being ready, walking through that grass, just amateur stuff. And so anyways, I did end up finding another tree that I could get in, and I don't know what I was, 6-7 feet off the ground. But another thing I did this year is I've been setting up on the back side of the tree. So I'm kind of like leaning out and shooting around the tree.
Yep.
And I don't know, that seems to be something I really like too for cover. I'm a pretty big guy up in a tree, so I'm not very sneaky.
Yep,
I'm
yep.
6'3", 270, so I'm not
okay. Yep.
real elusive.
What night were you on when your buck came out? Did you hunt a couple of days before you killed then?
One day. I had one day of hunting. We glassed the one morning. We hunted the night, glassed up that field, and then I went in the next day to get after these bucks. There's 3 that I would have shot.
So were you hunting mornings at all, or was it just strictly evenings?
We didn't. Yeah, we only hunted. We glassed all the mornings, then we hunted at night. Which, if I could go back, I would do that differently.
Really?
I would also hunt mornings too.
Okay. That's kind of against the grain. What everybody says, everybody's like, don't hunt the mornings that early because the deer are on the fields, and but if you can get far back in, like I've done it before, you can get back in the timber or some cover where you think they're going. If you can beat them there, I mean, it could be really deadly.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was just going to say. And where we were hunting, there was several creek bottoms to where you could weasel your way in between them.
Okay, so access was good then.
Yeah, and they weren't. And there's a lot of hills. There's a lot of hills that you can hide behind when you're going in. And I feel like they stayed out really late too in the morning. I mean, some of those deer heading back up in the hills, I mean, it was 9 o'clock before they're heading back up.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, it wasn't like the break of day, they're heading back up into the hillsides.
Right.
Like it was well into the morning.
Okay. So you're just hunting evenings then?
Yep. We were just hunting evenings. We were going out in about the middle of the day and then hunting till dark. I mean, and it was miserable hot.
Yep. I bet.
So it depends who you're asking. A Texas guy might think differently, but for me, it was hot.
Yep. So you go in that next evening. So how'd the night kind of unfold?
So got set up, and like I said, I was in this tree kind of overlooking this. I was kind of up on a hillside, and this tree jetted out, and I set up on the back side of this tree. And like I said, I was like 6-7 feet off the ground. And so not much, but all my deer this year, I've actually set up, the tallest one was probably 12 feet. And I like that better, it seems like, from just kind of the little bit I've done for my shot angle.
Yep. Creates a different shot angle, maybe a little flatter.
Yeah, you're not one-lunging deer,
Yep.
So anyways, got set up, and he actually happened to be the first deer that came zigzagging through this tall grass. And I caught him out of the corner of my eye, and actually he came running. He picked up pace, which makes me wonder, I don't know if like a coyote was chasing him or what spooked him, but like halfway down when I seen him zigzagging, and he's heading straight on towards me, so I could see his rack outside his ears, and I'm like, shooter,
Yep. And he's in velvet, right?
Oh yeah, he was just beautiful, man. And they're like, one thing I'll say about the North Dakota deer is they're like smaller deer.
Yep.
So the racks look bigger.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Uh-huh.
So he's running directly at me, and I draw my bow, and I've shot like trotting deer before, but like halfway down the field, he picks up, like, I'm talking full speed. And he goes by me at about, 27 yards, and I lead him a little bit, and I let the arrow go, and I see it go in, and it enters in about center body. And what ended up happening is I told my buddy, I said, dude, I think I just got shot that deer. And this is later on,
Yep.
After I get back, and I didn't go after him, and my buddy was just like heartbroken. And I'm feeling sick as shit because I'm thinking I just got punched this deer. And so whatever, we go back. He takes off the next day. I'm like, I'm going to go look for him and whatnot. And we're thinking if he did die, if anything, he's eaten up by coyotes. And sure as shit, I get back there the next day and end up finding him. He didn't make it 40 yards from where I shot him.
Holy cow. You actually shot him on a run?
Yeah, full, and I'm talking full out run. Like,
holy cow.
borderline unethical. You know what I'm saying, man? Like, I was actually, my buddy was kind of pissed at me, and I was kind of pissed at myself. I don't know if my adrenaline just got going or whatnot, but hindsight, you shouldn't take a shot like that probably, but at the same time, it's like I felt pretty confident. My setup's pretty freaking awesome. I feel like I take a lot of shots that like my favorite shot, if you're asking me, is a front quartering 2 shot right on the shoulder.
Yep.
Yep.
Get all the goodies, man. Send it right up there.
Yeah, and I shoot a 90-pound Matthews. So I mean, it packs some punch,
Yep. So this deer only ran 40 yards. So you
40
found
yards ended up going in the last rib and came out by kind of like his hip area.
Okay.
And I mean, he tipped over 40 yards. If I would have crested the hill when I went and got my arrow, I would have seen him laying there.
Wow. So did the coyotes get after him?
Nope, nothing. He was completely fine. Saved all the meat. It was funny. So after I found him, I actually had to put one of my steps up on a tree, climb to the top, wave my cell phone around for reception. So I could let my buddy know that I got this deer.
Yep.
And I hiked back to the truck, dropped all my stuff off, came back, gutted him out, and I just picked the deer up and carried him back. And I got like halfway down this fence line when my buddy was actually coming. He got my text. And so he got some really cool pictures of me carrying this deer out. It looks cooler than it is because you got to remember they're a lot lighter than around here.
Well, if you're 6'3", 270, that's probably nothing for you to pick that deer up.
He was a lot smaller. I'll tell you what, if I would have tried that with the 200-pound Wisconsin deer, that would have been a different story. But
so, I mean, your goal, it's off to a good start. So you're leaving North Dakota. What is your game plan next for the next state, and what state is it?
Well, next I'm heading back home, and actually, so we got back, and what was that, September? So I went early September. Yep, we came back, and then mid-September, Wisconsin opens up. So, and actually, this is my first year. My wife is bow hunting too.
Okay.
And actually, she wasn't my wife at that time. She was my girlfriend, or fiance, I should say. And so opening night of Wisconsin, get her set up in a stand, and then I'm probably, I don't know, 250 yards away from her. She ends up hitting a doe, and I get this text. It's pretty cool because you gotta remember, this is her first deer ever, first bow hunt,
first set ever, right? First time.
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
And I had her shooting all summer, and she was doing really good. And she ends up, I get a text message, and she's like, I smoked a deer, dropped him right there. And I'm like, right away, I'm like, shit, you spined her. And I'm like, babe, you spined her. You need to get down and put another arrow in her. And she's like, I'm getting text back. She's moving. And I'm like, you need to go put her out of her misery, as fast as you can. And so she did. And this is all by herself.
Wow. That's crazy.
Which is impressive.
It is. That is impressive.
A lot of people, to know what to do in that situation, you panic, you made a questionable shot, and I mean, you hunt long enough, you're gonna have to go and put a deer out of its misery.
100%. Yep.
And I don't know anyone that enjoys doing that.
No,
you know what I'm saying?
Not at all.
It's one of the hard parts about bow hunting and whatnot. But anyway, she did it, and that same night, I actually had a nice 130-inch 10-pointer come by. He was real short tine, but had good mass, good width. And 9 out of 10 times I shoot that deer. But coming off my high from my North Dakota velvet buck, I just watched him. I watched him at 7 yards go by. I took a little video. Yeah, I took a little video with my phone. And I don't know, it just like, it goes back, me and you were talking about, like that feeling, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I was just like enjoying the moment. My wife had just shot a deer, and I just had an awesome hunt with a buddy out in North Dakota with a velvet deer, and I just kind of watched this buck go by, and then I've kind of questioned myself, like, shit, should I shot that deer?
Tell me this though. So a lot of people ask, and I ask a lot of guests on here too, like, what are your goals going into, the trip? Is it an age thing? Is it an inches thing? Like, what do you, want to get out of it? So and kind of the way I do it is, I've said before, I want to try to kill a 3-year-old here in Michigan, however big he is, it doesn't really matter, but a 3-year-old is what I'm trying to shoot for. If I kill a 2-year-old, then that's what happens. But ultimately, when you're in the stand and it comes down to it, it's whatever. When I see that deer, if my heart gets going and uncontrollably, and my body will tell me what I need to do. Now, when you saw that deer, did you not get that feeling, or did you get that feeling but kind of talked yourself out of it?
No, to be dead honest, I think that's where trail cameras kind of ruin you a little bit too.
Yep.
Is I knew the buck.
Okay.
And I wasn't all that excited. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yep.
Obviously you're excited the buck's in front of you, but like, I don't even remember if I grabbed my bow. Like, it just wasn't there. And actually, so just to kind of, you talk about like that feeling. The buck I shot in Wisconsin was actually a little smaller.
Okay.
But I'll tell you what, that was. Did you ever see that picture?
I think I have, yeah.
My doe and the buck, I shot them both 6 minutes apart.
Yep.
So that was a feeling. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
When they came out, it was. So yeah, I don't know. You ask if there's a score, or I'm not age, I'm not score. I'm definitely a feeling, it's gotta get your heart pumping.
For sure.
And it's funny. It's funny how, like, you can have a doe come by and you're kind of annoyed when it comes by when you're not going to shoot a doe that day.
Right. But when you are going to shoot it, look out.
Yeah. Then all of a sudden, shake's coming on, and
yep.
So but we came back, and so we hunted the first 2 weeks, or the last 2 weeks, I should say, of September. Those were the first 2 weeks of the season. And then me and my wife actually got married. So we went down to the Smoky Mountains, got married, did a week trip, and we came back and got back after bow hunting. And it was actually October 25th is the day I shot my buck and my doe in Wisconsin. And to kind of get into that story, that morning was, I think it was like 20 degrees. It was one of the first like really cold mornings. Everything was frosty. All the leaves on the ground were like wet with dew.
Yep.
So super quiet to get in. So I went in on this backside of this marsh that hadn't been hunted yet all year. My dad was cool enough to stay out of there. He knew I wanted to get back in there, and just it had to be kind of the right time. And it was a perfect morning to get in there, just super quiet, slipped in, hung my stand up kind of between these two ridges that kind of runs down a valley to this marsh. And I've noticed the deer trails are like sloping up it at like a 45. Like they're taking the hills at an angle,
Okay.
Kind of gradually going up. So that's kind of how I picked it on a train base, And so whatever, I got set up that morning, and I seen a buck come through, but I couldn't tell how big he was. It was too dark that morning. And he kind of moseyed through, and later on, all of a sudden, this doe comes through. And I kind of had this theory to kind of change things a little bit, is a lot of people don't shoot does. You're coming onto the rut and whatnot.
Yep.
And I had kind of this theory, and it could totally be wrong, but it kind of half-ass worked this day. Let's say that doe is in heat and dragging scent all over. Okay.
Yep.
If I shoot that deer, that scent stops there.
I gotcha.
Instead of dragging across the fence line over to the neighbor's property.
Yep.
And you know what I'm saying?
It's interesting. I've never really kind of actually pictured it that way. Like you kind of think like that could happen. Yeah. But I've never actually had that come across like I need to do that. So that's unique. And that's different.
And I wouldn't have thought of that. So I shot this doe.
And she's by herself? She was by herself?
Yep, by herself. And so I shot her. All the deer I shot 4 deer this year with my bow. None of them went over 40 yards. So I shot this deer. She dropped dead on the trail, and wasn't 6 minutes. I'm texting my buddies, I got a doe down. It was like 7:30, and about 6 minutes later, all of a sudden I see this buck looping through the woods, following her exact trail. His nose is to the ground.
Oh man.
Yep. And he comes walking, and and I'm already drawn back, and I'm ready for him to step into my shooting lane. Kind of, I got, that was naturally there. And where I shot this doe, though, I'm like, this is going to work out picture perfect. Well, he stops right behind 3 trees, and he's staring. He finally picked his head up enough to see the dead deer in front of him.
Yep.
And she's probably, 20 yards in front of him. And he gets into panic mode. He takes a step back. His head's on a swivel. He's looking around. And I'm just looking, and all that I can see is his front shoulder between these 3 trees. And I'm like, I'm going to feed an arrow through there, because that's one thing I believe is you get one shot at a buck.
A year, that's it. I'm the same way, man. You get one opportunity.
How many times, I was thinking about this too, I was telling my buddy Nate, how many times do you hear the story, 2 more steps, man, and I would have had that buck?
Yep.
5 more yards, man, I would have had that buck.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
100%. You hear it every year. Yeah.
Dude, I bet you I've heard 10 stories this year about oh man, I just needed 10 more steps or 5 more yards, or you had to clear this tree. And I wonder out of how many of those stories you could have made something work.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
You got to take some chances. Now, I'm not encouraging unethical shit by any means, but it's you got to make it count, man. Their only job in life is to survive.
Yep.
I agree. So
yep.
So, and they have an intuition. They got a sixth sense. How odd is it that he stopped behind those three random trees? You know what I'm saying?
Yep. Well, it could be the 6'3" guy that weighs 270 pounds.
Yeah, hiding up in a tree.
Yep.
So anyways, I feed this arrow through and just smoke him. Dude, I go right through the shoulder, punched his heart, and he ran, I don't know what he did, 35 yards, tipped over. His legs gave out. He plowed dirt, and I actually took a Snapchat, sent it to a bunch of buddies of both deer in the same picture.
That's awesome.
Laying there.
That's awesome.
All by 7:36 in the morning.
Okay, so I got to backtrack a little bit though. So you kill these 2 deer, you got 2 legs of the 3 done. Of your goal. What are you saying in the tree? You're yelling. I almost guarantee you're yelling. You're saying explicit things, and you're just hooting and hollering. So are you at this point? Are you thinking this goal is obtainable? I could do this, or was that not even a thought in your mind?
No, I'm thinking very obtainable because here was my theory on this is if I get the North Dakota done in that 1 week period, which I did, I was fortunate enough to, and then Wisconsin, my goal was by Halloween.
Okay.
If I thought my shots were amazing if I could have a buck down in Wisconsin by the end of October, because that gives you basically, I'm trying to get into Minnesota before the guns come out.
Yep. And when does their gun season start?
Well, they have I don't even want to say a date. Some guys listening to this from Minnesota freaking out, but it's they have an early gun season with shotgun. They run 2 seasons.
Okay. They
run 1 week on, a week off, and then another week on, and they actually have a rut shotgun. So it's the first weekend or the 5th or some shit like that. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
They're early
it's broken
November.
Up a little bit.
Yeah, they're early November.
Okay.
So it might be the first Saturday or something like that.
Yep.
Either way, I know this. I know that I shot the Minnesota buck on the 13th, and it was during their gun season.
Oh, sure. Okay.
So I know it was that time period.
Gotcha.
But no, I thought it was extremely obtainable because I'm going into Minnesota now, and I still got a little bit of October left and, roughly the first week of November to get it done.
Did you have some spots in Minnesota already scouted out, or even just an idea where you wanted to go?
Yeah. So heading into kind of no different than in North Dakota, I benefited off a buddy that my buddy Scott Lesky, actually, he's the one that shot that 120-inch 8-pointer on
Yep.
public land that kind of inspired me in the first place to get after it on public land. And, you know, you make these friendships and you build this trust of guys that are willing to share info with you because they know I'm going to do the same. And so he kind of got me going there. He gave me several spots. We scouted. I mean, this chunk of public, man, it's like 20,000 acres.
Wow. It's a big chunk.
So it's, yeah. And like how we just kind of look at it is like, we actually call different spots like farms. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So we call it like Handgun Valley, or, you know, it's just a couple of them, but it's like, we kind of look at it like a section, like a 500-acre section. And we look at that like its own farm.
Okay.
And then you kind of break it down. Because one thing Minnesota does that's really cool is there's a lot of like cropland on the public.
Gotcha.
And they leave like, don't quote me on this, but I think it's like 10% of crops standing.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So, and remember we were just talking about earlier before we jumped on was the terrain features of like, it's so hilly in Minnesota.
Yep.
Well, a lot of these spots have awesome ag fields up top, and then it drops down into these big woods.
Okay, so a lot of deer coming up there to feed.
Oh, and perfect access.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? The worst to me is when you got to walk through a field and enter the woods from the bottom.
Yep. And it's probably good for thermals as well, for your wind.
Absolutely. Are you like... that's when I think you can get away with a lot more morning hunts too.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, nope. So I had and actually I was out with a buddy. We were actually on a different chunk of public land in Minnesota. My buddy Nate, who I also went to North Dakota with, he was actually at work on Tuesday. I work with him, and he's like, "Hey man, I got a new spot. I'd like to go in, and I'd like us both to kind of hunt it and scout it all." He's like, "I haven't hunted half the property. So if you can envision this," we kind of made a game plan the night before. We were going to go in. We were going to get in there probably like an hour before light. And it was this long, narrow parcel. It's a little over a mile in length. And it's all fields up top. They're all private though. The fields are all private, and the woods below are all public. And it's this giant kind of like washout that runs a mile in length, and it's got all these like finger washouts that you can walk up to the fields, and it's all open woods. Like you could see 150 yards in these woods.
So it's mature woods and
yes, yep. Garbage hunting.
Yep. It's
garbage
like the desert
hunting.
to deer, probably.
Oh, dude, it was horrible. So we go in a half mile up this ton of rocks. We were just crawling through rocks the whole morning and down trees, and he's been in there before. So we had an idea, but then we were going to split, and he was going to go where he's already been, and then I was going to hike up the other side, and we were going to kind of work our way around this bowl till in the afternoon we meet each other, you know?
Yep.
And so anyways, we get in about a half mile. He splits up one way, I go the other. We tell each other good luck and get set up. And I mean, it is freezing cold. And it's like 12 degrees and we're both wearing sweatshirts. Bunch of idiots. Like we were so excited. We kind of like forgot how like to look at weather, or you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
We were just like, hey, we need to get out and hunt. So, I mean, I got my Chewy bars and my honey bun in my fanny pack and going with our mobile setups. And so anyways, like the minute the light comes up, the sun comes up, like I realize this woods is just crazy open. And I'm like, okay, I gotta get down. So I tear that set down. And what I start doing is I start kind of looking at my Onyx maps, and as I'm walking, I'm looking at all the thick, it kind of gets to like CRP between the fields that kind of runs into the woods.
Okay.
So it's like 4 feet tall grass, you know? And so I get to the edge of all this stuff. And what I started doing was I kept one stick off my pack, and I'd put it on a tree. I'd climb to the top and I'd look down into the CRP.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And so I'd just climb to the top of that stick. I'd look down and I'd kind of glass it over a little bit and see if there's a lot of trails running through, or, I'm just looking for any kind of sign.
Yep.
Cause I can see the rest of the woods. So my only hope is kind of this field area. Well, long story short, it is now noon, and I had already tore my set down 3 times. Cause
Wow.
and the reason I was moving was because number one, I was cold. So moving got me warmed up again, tearing down, hiking a ways, and then getting set back up. You warm back up a little bit. And then a new spot kind of rejuvenates you a little bit. Well, I got to this one. So about noon, I tore down again, and I'm on my last area, and I run into this spot where there's still standing corn. And so it's standing corn, 50 yards of this CRP grass that runs into the woods quite a ways. And I'm like, okay, this could be promising. It's kind of like a little cut through, you know? So I put my stick on a tree, climb up, and I mean, it's like a maze running through there. And I'm like, okay, shit's traveling through here.
So you're thinking you probably found the main highway, probably.
That's what I'm hoping. Because you got to find something that they're cutting through the public.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Because the corn's private, right?
Yep, the corn's private. And so I'm finding something that they're cutting through, is all I need them to do is get on the edge of public, and I'm good.
Mm-hmm.
So I get up in a tree, and I'm kind of there's 3 trees set up kind of wrapped around me because it is just crazy windy, cold as hell. I get set up. I'm there for probably 45 minutes, and I love the spot. I'm like, if something's going to happen, it's here.
What time of day did you say this was?
This is at 1 p.m. now.
And this is November 12th?
November 13th.
13th, okay.
Yep, November 13th, 1 p.m. And I'm freezing. And my buddy's phone is dead. So, and we didn't know all this at the time, but my buddy's phone is dead. Mine's at 3%. And so I can't even text him. We don't even know which way each other's moving around all this public to kind of meet up with each other eventually. And at the end of the day, And another thing, a little side note, is we think more highly of each other than we probably are. So my buddy's thinking I'm some badass up in a tree, and I'm not moving, and I'm not cold, and I'm, you know what I'm saying? That's what he's thinking. I'm thinking the same thing about him, when really we're both being a bunch of bitches up there,
freezing,
cold as hell. And we're moving a lot more than we thought, around this bowl. So anyways, though, now, so I'm freezing cold again. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to get down again, and I'm going to wrap around this corner and kind of be in the same area, but I'll be on the other side. Wind's blowing so freaking hard back into the woods over this opening. I'm not worried about the wind.
And your sound's probably masked.
Oh, dude,
too.
you're golden. I mean, it's so, the wind is so loud you couldn't hear something walking.
Yep.
So anyways, I unnock my arrow, and I'm just about to slide it into my quiver, and all of a sudden I look down, and I'm probably 12 feet in the air, and I look down, and there's a doe 3 yards from me. I mean, I could have dropped my bow on her. And I'm like, oh shit. Immediately look out of the corner of my eye, and I see a buck zigzagging through that grass.
Probably trying to get her scent.
Yeah, I think he was following her.
Yep.
And so how I'm set up, I had this one opening at 25 yards. Otherwise, the next opening was at 5 yards where that doe was standing. And then I'm done. Because remember, I'm wrapped by these 3 trees.
Yep.
And so that's it. And there's a giant limb sticking out. So if you don't hit one of those spots, you're shit out of luck. And I can't shoot anything on my right side because the tree's wrapped around. And so anyways, this buck's coming. I knock my arrow real quick, draw, and dude, that's why I don't call it luck or hope. It's destiny. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of what I think about.
Yep.
For everything to line up in the world for that deer to be in that spot for you to shoot,
Yep.
it's just meant to be. And so this deer stops and he lets out 2 grunts. And I mean, it's so cold. It's the grunts that you can see the frost come out of his mouth, And dude, quartering 2 shot, let it rip, crush his shoulder right through the shoulder, split his heart. He runs, wraps around my tree, drops dead within 40 yards.
Oh my God.
And I watched him. I literally spun with him around the tree. And I mean, this grass that I was telling you is like 4 feet tall, just sprayed with blood.
Oh man. That's a good feeling.
Oh my gosh, dude. And to see him pile up like that, I was just like you did your job,
Yep. That's awesome. So, I mean, explain it a little bit. What was he? What did he look like?
So, this buck in Minnesota, he was 122-inch 8-pointer.
Perfect.
Yep, and he dressed out at 200 pounds on the nuts.
Jeez, oh Pete, big deer, big body deer.
Yeah. So I got to tell you this too. So remember, we got no cell phone service. I got to continue here. No cell phone service, so I can't even tell my buddy I got this buck. And I'm at the farthest point you can get on this property. So I'm like, I'm a hair over a mile in, and I'm like, okay. So I get out to be fully honest, I run across a farmer's field road to get to the main road.
Yep.
Okay. So I get to the main road. I have to walk. It's a 1.5 mile walk back to my truck.
Okay.
So the first thing I did was I pulled the deer up and I hid the deer. Cause like people in public, they'll cut the head off, and
I've heard horror stories.
Dude, it's, shit you don't have to worry about on private land. So What I do is I get this deer drug all the way up and I hide him between 2 down trees. Okay, I tag him, drag him up, hide him between 2 down trees, and I get out to the road, walk back to my truck, get my phone plugged in enough to get some service and enough power to get back onto Onyx. I get the landowner's name that owns that field road that I crossed.
Yep.
Drive to his house, knock on his door. I'm like, hey, sir, I just shot a buck over here. And dude, he could give a shit less. He just wanted me out of there. Like, yeah, go, just go get out of here.
So he wouldn't let you go on there, or he would?
Oh, he would.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, he just wanted me out of his way. I don't know if he was watching a great TV show or what.
Probably a Hammer flick or something.
It could be. I don't. But yeah, he was just wanting me out of there, and he's like, yeah, yep, go get it. Just all right, we'll see ya. And okay, I said, thank you, sir. Got my truck down there. I mean, dude, it was like a 200-yard drag.
Oh, dude, you did this. You got off easy.
Oh my gosh, it was beyond lucky. So I got him out, get him drug up, pull him up into my truck, and my buddy doesn't know about this at the time now. So I like get this deer stuffed up into my tailgate, so you can't see him. My tonneau cover's on and everything.
Yep.
And I'm driving back down to the main access, and here my buddy is come walking up the road. He could see my tire tracks in the snow. And so I meet him on the road, and I'm like, hey man, I just got so cold I had to get back in the truck, And he's like, yeah, me too, and I'm like, why don't you throw your shit in the back, And so he goes back there, flips that tailgate down, and we both just lose it.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
We're out in the middle of this road. We're both freaking out, and he's on cloud 9. And
dude, that's the best feeling ever. When you can do it with buddies like that, man, that's awesome.
Yeah, so I got to go back up and find out if that neighbor would let me park up there to access it from the top,
Yeah, no kidding.
That's the first thing I thought was like, dude, I'm going to go back. And that farmer has no clue the amount of work he just saved me.
Take him some venison or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I thought about doing, was bringing him some beer and some venison or something.
Yep.
Just for a thank you. He has no clue the amount of time and work he saved me.
That's unbelievable, man. That's a hell of a year. I mean, to set a goal like that and then actually accomplish it, and the time and effort that you put into it. Well, I mean, the farmer did save you a lot of effort, but next year I want you to put that buck on your back and go back up and down the hills. So no shortcuts next year.
I know. No, dude, it was just, I'm still on cloud nine thinking about it. But like I said, that buck, so to go through in my head, the velvet buck was 127 inches and some change.
Perfect.
8-pointer.
Yep.
And then the 9-pointer in Wisconsin, he was 124. And then the Minnesota buck was 122.
Dude, I mean,
8-pointer.
3 great bucks.
Yeah, dude, I'm on cloud nine about it. I'm getting a head mount done. I should get it back in the next week of the velvet buck.
That's awesome.
And then the other 2 I did Euro mounts on them.
Good for you, man. That's something that we've been, I don't want to discredit those deer at all. Those deer are studs. Those are big deer, and I feel like you and I kind of briefly talked about it before this, about how, we think the outdoor industry or the hunting industry is kind of dying because of, you have to kill a big deer to be accepted, and I'm not all about that. I used to be that guy. I'm not going to lie. 6-7 years ago, I used to be that guy, like, complain, like, why is the neighbor shooting that deer or whatever. I was caught up in it. I'll be 100% honest with you. But now, I mean, I just want people to have fun. I want to have fun. You know what I mean? And the journey that you had to get those 3 deer, I mean, it's second to none. And you'll remember those probably better than any of your biggest deer you've ever killed, probably.
No, you're 100% right. And actually, I told you this before, but if I was to, my biggest deer is I have a 148-inch buck. I have 15 deer over 120. Yep. And like, by far, if you have to ask me, my favorite deer is still that Minnesota buck that I shot this last season.
That's awesome.
And he's definitely not the biggest. But he's the one I'm by far the most proud of.
Yep.
Because to get through that season, and to do it with my buddy too, my buddy Nate. I mean, just someone that's extremely selfless like that, and my wife letting me go and do all this. That's another thing too that people need to take into perspective is, the people doing these hunts. Like, I don't have any kids.
Yep. Do it now.
You get what I'm saying? I have a wife that's into hunting that lets me go and do this stuff. And I also have a job that I have 4 weeks of vacation, and with no kids, you're not using up sick time. You're not, you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So 2-3 weeks of those 4 weeks, they're hunting.
Yep.
Like, I'm beyond spoiled. There's guys doing, shooting bucks. There's one guy on the team that I'm on that he shot a buck on public land in Wisconsin, like hard public land to hunt. I mean, you get like swamps, no ag, and it's like, and he's got a kid, a wife, a job that he doesn't have the vacation time that I have, and he's still getting it done. It's like, I don't know, just people got to put it in perspective when they're taking that into account. You see some of these giants being shot, and you don't really know their situation. Is it a shit ton of private land that
exactly,
they don't have to put much work in, or that's kind of the main reason I started doing this in the first place, was like, it wasn't enough. You know what I'm saying? Like I told you, I feel extremely confident. Like, I would bet a lot that I'm going to kill a deer at my grandpa's farm.
Mm-hmm.
Every year. You know what I'm saying? It's just, and to me, you should. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you've been hunting a place for 10, 15 years and you're not getting it done consistently, you probably need to look at what you're doing.
Yep. Probably doing something a little wrong.
Or like you said, you're setting unrealistic expectations. If I went out every year and said, like, I want to shoot a 150-inch deer, I'm going to be eating a lot of tags.
Mm-hmm.
Because I didn't even see a 150-inch deer this year.
Yep. Well, and then you have, on the other end of the fold, you have guys that when you say that are like, well, you're shooting the first 120-inch buck that comes by, so that's why you're not seeing it. Well, sorry, but that's what I want to do. You know what I mean? Like, that deer.
You know what? You could be that's one theory.
Yep, 100%.
But we actually benefit from our neighbors at my grandpa's farm, and we talk and we share trail camera photos, and if 140-inch deer is shot, like, the neighbors know.
Oh yeah, people are gonna know about it.
So I don't know. I guess if you could get every single person around you, my grandpa's farm is 140 acres. About 60 of it's huntable. The rest is just dead open pasture.
Mm-hmm.
And we have, so like opener of bow, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people on there on 60 acres.
It's a lot.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like, I hear some of these people like, I think I messaged you that. I listened to that one podcast where it's like, I got 1,900 acres. I share with 4 people. It's super pressured.
Not really.
Holy shit, man. You got like 400 or 500 acres to yourself.
Yep.
Like, so, and by the way, like, I'm not complaining. Like, to me, that's still not pressured.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you want real perspective of what pressured is, go hunt some public land.
Yep.
I think I told you, remember I had that guy in my stand the one morning.
Yep.
I actually did a setup, did a hang and bang one morning, Minnesota, or it was actually one night, and you're not supposed to, but I left my stand in the tree. And I'm like, I'd been there all week, like in that general vicinity, and I hadn't seen a single vehicle, okay? And so I'm like, I think I'll be safe. It was snow. You could see my tracks. Well, so I left it, came back in the morning, and nope, no one parked there, no tracks. I'm good to go, right? I get into the woods, and all of a sudden I run into a small set of tracks that run into mine. Little footprints.
Yep.
And I'm like, holy shit. Like, I kind of got nervous. Like, I was telling my wife about it. Like, I thought there was like a kid out there.
Uh-huh.
And so I'm following these tracks, and like, I'm kind of being a dumbass. I'm not looking up. I'm literally just following these tracks on the ground with my flashlight and stuff. And all of a sudden I hear a whistle, and I look up and hear him standing by my tree that I hung, and hear this little a little Hmong guy standing up in the tree. and he looks scared out of his mind. Like,
because he knew he wasn't supposed to be there.
Exactly. Well, and I think he thought, like, maybe he's had some bad encounters,
Yeah.
But I'm dying laughing. He gets down, we're bullshitting for a while, we're both laughing about it, and so anyways, it's kind of funny, another thing that happened. So he told me, he said he was out there squirrel hunting. He said he does a lot of squirrel hunting on that land, and he said there's a big buck in here, and he said he's gonna come over that hill. And I'm like, I don't know, man, it's pretty steep over there. Like, I think they cut the side hill over here. He's like, no. He's like, big buck over this hill. I'm like, okay, whatever, So I get up in my stand, and it's like crunchy snow, you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And when I came in, I sounded like a goddamn grizzly bear walking through there. Like, everything heard me. And when this guy left, dude, I didn't hear a sound.
Just a wee little guy.
Yeah, and just like, it just shows how, like, I don't know, like, just kind of like elusive they are, and just how much more time they've spent in the woods than I have, and just probably their woodsmanship would be the best way to say it.
Yep.
Their spot and stock mentality and stuff, because they grew up on that public land. They weren't babied like we were on private property. And,
yep, 100%. Yep.
But so anyways, lo and behold, 9 a.m. buck crests over that hill that he was pointing at. That one I was telling you about. Remember that steep, like,
yep.
Dude, if you were to climb up that hill, you'd have to be like hanging on to every tree as you're climbing.
Was he a big deer, like he said?
He was probably like 120-inch 8-pointer. Like, I would have shot him in a heartbeat.
Yeah, he's a good deer.
I would have shot him in a heartbeat. And yeah, he crested over though, and he probably stood there for 30 seconds, and a big gust of wind came right from me to him, and his nose went straight up, and he knew something wasn't right.
Gone.
He just kind of walked off.
Yep. Man, that's crazy though. It's pretty cool, the encounters that you can have. Like, hunting, I always say, like, hunting, it's brought so many people together. Like, this is the first time I've ever talked to you, and you and we've been talking for an hour and a half now. Like, we've been buddies forever. That's what I love about it. And that's what I love about doing these podcasts is like you get to interact with a lot of guys from across the country that might be doing things the same or a little different, but we're ultimately trying to go for the same goal or, some type of the same goal. So it's just really cool. That's why I love hunting.
We were talking earlier just about kind of the industry and how you were saying that you shot that giant, by the way, congratulations in Iowa.
Yeah.
And you shot another stud in Kansas, and you were telling me how you were getting a lot of hate for the buck you shot in Kansas.
Yep. Well, the show is going to air tonight, so I only imagine I'm going to get some more here probably tonight.
Which blows my mind because that buck was still an extremely nice buck. You could tell it was a huge deer.
Yeah. He didn't, like, as score standards go, like I said, I've been telling people he might go 115, maybe 120, maybe. But, like, the circumstances that I was in, not that I was, like, felt like I had to shoot that deer. What I mean is, like, wait till you see the video. Like, I had just climbed the tree. I was in it for 6 minutes. I just had knocked an arrow and turned around, and this deer's coming right at me. When I looked at the deer, my heart just started pounding. And I'm like, yep, that's the deer I want to shoot. Like, never once did I have a thought in my head that I was like, well, he's not that big. Never once I ever thought that. Even when I walked up on him, I was never like, how am I going to make him look big in pictures or anything like that? I never once thought that. I was so jacked, so excited. And that's why I do that. And that's the best way I can describe to those people that just sending just stupid stuff and direct messages on Instagram and Facebook. And I'm like, you guys have nothing else better to do than just try to pick on other people. And 95% of it is all jealousy. Sorry. I'm sorry I get to do what I do. Actually, no, I'm not sorry. I've worked my ass off to get where I'm at and to be able to do what I do. And I enjoy it a lot. So
answer this, Aaron. How many of those people are hunters?
That's the thing. I don't know. Like, a lot of them probably aren't,
You know what? I'd beg to differ. I bet you all of them are hunters.
Yeah. They probably are.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And, people like to complain about the anti-hunters, and that is the smallest part of our problem in our hunting industry. It is hands down hunter on hunter hate.
It is, and it's sickening.
Dude, between bow hunters hating the gun hunters, the bow hunters hating the crossbow hunters, it's the gun hunters want to be able to hunt during the rut. It's not fair the bow hunters do. It's like, dude, do you know how much shit is going on right now? It's like prime example, South Dakota. You probably know about this already, but they just took their so non-residents can't hunt till October 1st.
Really? I actually didn't know that.
Yeah, unless you go through an outfitter.
Okay.
So go figure. It's like
it's all money related.
To me, that's and like I literally read, anyone that's listening to this, go to the Fish and Game for did I say South Dakota right?
Yeah, you said South Dakota.
Okay,
yeah.
I just want to make sure I didn't say North Dakota. North Dakota's still doing a great job. Thank you, North Dakota Fish and Game. South Dakota, though, they can go fuck themselves. Sorry for the F word.
You're good.
Like, so I actually read on their website, it's literally to improve resident hunters. Bottom line, I read a bunch of opinion articles on it too. Tony Peterson did an awesome podcast on laying it out. But the bottom line is they're complaining about the non-resident hunters coming in. It's like we pay 5 times the amount for our tags. We spend gas money, vacation time. We're supporting your local hotels, your restaurants, gas stations. It's like, and then you go and screw us over so that you can hunt a month ahead of us.
Yep.
I would never do that to someone. And like what bothers me too is you got to remember, like 20% of that state is public land.
Yep. There's a lot of public. Well, yeah. There's a ton of public land out there.
It's insane,
yeah.
And it's just like, and now you just took away anyone's opportunity to get a velvet deer that normally would be able to go down to South Dakota and get an awesome hunt in. And it's maddening. And in Wisconsin, now Wisconsin's looking. I mean, how many states? Number one, how many states are going to follow through with that? Is Kentucky next?
I don't know.
So you can't go out of state and get a Kentucky velvet deer? It's like,
yeah,
it's just kind of sad that we're going to this, like, especially when I hear it from like the people that think like, oh, it's so pressured. This all that I see is out of state license plates. It's like, dude, I'm from Wisconsin. Don't whine to me about non-resident hunters.
Yep.
Like, the only people I want to hear complaining is Michigan and Pennsylvania.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Unless you're one of those three states, keep your mouth shut.
Well, Wisconsin's going through a whole bunch of proposed changes right now, too, that they're putting, which you probably know about. I actually did a podcast with my buddy Keegan just a couple days ago talking about all these proposed changes, because he's grown up in Wisconsin, just like you, hunted Wisconsin his whole life. So I wanted to get his perspective on all of them. And I'll tell you what, there's some in there that I'm just like, no, there's no way I would go for that. And why would you even want to do that?
They're complete garbage. And to me, it is beyond selfish. One of them, you already did a podcast with it. So, like,
yep.
One of them was extending the gun season.
Yep, 19 days instead of having it 9 days, which is the shortest in the country. Which,
by the way, I'm totally fine if you want to extend it, but move it back.
Yep.
They want to, if you want to add those 10 days, add it to the end of it. Don't add it to the front of it. See, bottom line is they want these gun hunters to get in and get some of the rut action.
Well, and the reason we talked about that, and I think, coming from Michigan as a very traditional state like Wisconsin, I think it's the revenue. It's all revenue based, because there is, and I'm guessing in Wisconsin the same, but up in the UP of Michigan, there is towns that rely on opening day of rifle season in that weekend, that rely on that revenue and the people that travel there. And I think it's just, they're just seeing dollar signs, and it's not so much, and I could be wrong. But that's my opinion. And I guess until I'm told different, that's where I'm at with it.
You know what? You're probably right. But it kind of goes back to what I told you earlier. One of the worst things, in my opinion, that like Wisconsin did was the online registration. Now, everyone loves how convenient it is, but you just screwed over all the local bars, restaurants, hotels. We have all kinds of non-resident hunters that come up in all the local communities too. Remember I told you, and before the online registration and whatnot, we used to go downtown to the local bars and I mean, it would be lined. The streets would be lined with trucks, with tailgates down, just supporting the community. Think of all the money that flooded the community during opening weekend of gun.
Right.
And now I told you, I can go down that same street and you won't see a vehicle.
That's crazy.
And I love how they think that this like made it more accurate for their numbers. I would bet you a lot of money there's a lot of deer not being registered because you never have to leave your house with that deer.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But this is my opinion. But you want to talk about revenue. You talked about revenue. Look at what you just took away from the communities.
Right. Yeah. And like you said with the South Dakota thing, we're trying to bring business in there in a way because we're hunting. So you're staying in hotels or in, you could be camping out at a campsite or something like that, or you're always eating at the local bar or the local restaurant or getting gas. Like, you're helping out these little towns, because where we're going hunting, and a majority of the hunters are going hunting, it's out in the middle of BFE where there's these little one-light towns. Basically, that's what it is. And, they probably sustains a lot of the revenue for that little town during the fall. So I totally get it.
No, absolutely. But you know what every state's doing? Every state's trying to be the next Iowa.
Yep. It's not going to happen because, I don't know the big difference, and you know it, but there is hardly anybody that live in Iowa. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. That's what I just told you, man. When I went down to see my buddies for the garage party, it's like you get on some of these roads, they see one car a day.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's like, it's a totally different atmosphere.
Yeah. The county that I shot my buck in Iowa, there are more bow hunters in Michigan that live in that county in Iowa. So put that into perspective.
Yeah, right? Yeah, no shit. That's a nice fact to know.
There's a reason why I saw 5 or 6 bucks over 150 and 160. There's a reason on one farm out of one stand. Like, and people, I've got so much hate mail from that. You shot it in a high fence. It must be nice to be able to hunt property that's in a high fence and low pressure with food plots all over it. I'm going to tell you what, the day before I got there is the day that I got that farm. Released it right then, you know, and yes, it's low pressure, but like I said, nobody really hunts out there. I mean, there are hunters, but they're not like they are in any other state. I don't care. I've hunted a lot of states in the Midwest. There is not a state like Iowa. I equate it to like Iowa is the major leagues. It is the NFL. It is the NBA. And every other state is like high school level, if that makes sense. Like, that is my analogy because I'm a sports guy. But like, when you go there, it's, you know, and I'm not going to vouch for public land because I know there's not a lot of public land there. And I've never hunted public land there. So, but I'm telling you, you go there and you can get on a lease or go with an outfitter. I don't care. Or private land, you're going to see the deer of your lifetime. And that might only be a 130-inch deer, but you're going to see them. Trust me. And you're probably going to get an opportunity at them. So it's just a different ball game.
You know, bringing that back, though, with like South Dakota and what Wisconsin wants to do, you know, they say the number one issue is hunter recruitment. I want to know, how does that help hunter recruitment? You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
Like with what South Dakota did, how does banning non-resident hunters till October 1st encourage hunting? Like every state wants to be the next big buck state, right?
Yep.
When is the last time you ever heard of people not hunting because there's not enough big bucks? You get what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
you hear how stupid that sounds?
It's
like I love how our game and fish like are listening to these people whining because of I don't get to see enough big bucks and non-residents are coming and killing all my deer.
Well,
and it's like,
yeah,
think about this, dude. Think about how, like, I think about non-resident hunters. Anybody I know that's spending money, time, PTO away from their family, that's traveling out of state, they're serious hunters. They're people like they're getting the job done. You know what I'm saying? They're not weekend warriors.
Right. Yep. But like you said, the Fish and Game are looking at the locals and the residents. They're whining, and the Fish and Game are probably taking it as like, we're losing these hunters. We can't lose our local hunters. So that's where I'm saying like the revenue's coming in. That means, like, you know what I'm saying? It's like a chain effect in a way. So they're almost, I feel like from an outsider's perspective, they're almost like shaking in their boots like, shit, we can't lose these people because they probably think there's not a lot of non-residents coming in and hunting. You know, I don't know. I could be looking too far into it too, but I just think that's one of the, they just don't want to lose their own, which I get, I understand, but still, there's a lot of people that travel all fall to different states to hunt. I mean, a lot of people, a lot of hunters.
No, you're 100% right. It's the squeaky wheel gets the grease, you know?
Yep. Yeah.
And I don't know. I just hope we don't do that same thing in Wisconsin where because dude, I'm a Wisconsin resident. I would never, like, if there was a vote like, hey, you know, if you want to take non-resident hunters and push them back a month so you guys get a better chance, absolutely not. I would not feel right being a hunter, a conservationist, raising my hand for a vote like that.
Yeah.
Like, and then you call yourself like a conservationist. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yep.
You're not doing this for population control. You're doing this out of selfish reasons. Well, yeah, of course. Would I love to hunt 1 month before my neighbors could hunt? Yeah, that'd be fucking great. That'd be extremely selfish too.
Yep. Everybody would.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, that's not even being a decent person. Like, to me, you need to have the attitude and the drive in yourself to get after it.
Yep.
Like, when I pull up to, like, I mean, this happened several times in Minnesota where I pull up and there was this guy, he beat me there twice where I'd see his vehicle. And you know what I had to do? I had to laugh. Like, his truck's already in the parking lot and he's gone.
Yep.
And I had to, like, I'm just sitting there like, touche, man. You know, like, you beat me.
Yep.
Like, and so I'd go somewhere else.
Yep. I get it. I think we're on the same page.
I just don't get this. this attitude that we have, and I mean, we're going to destroy ourselves. There's bigger things out there than the size of the buck. I mean, I forget what state it was. I'll send you the article after this.
Yeah.
But it's on like change.org, and there's actually petitions out to ban bow hunting. I think it was out in Washington right now. And dude, like, I hate making the argument for him, but it's like, that would be the easiest thing to go after in the world.
Yep, it really would.
If you want to talk about it, think about that. If you want to talk about true ethics and like putting an animal down mercifully, like, we have guns now. And remember, if you talk to any hunter or I should say any regular person that's not a hunter but not an anti-hunter, they're the ones deciding all our votes, correct?
Yep.
Right? What is hunter, like 4%? I think like 4% of the nation.
I don't even know what it is. Yeah, it's tiny.
Okay. So, I mean, this is just common sense shit, people. Like, think about it. So we need to persuade the mass that hunting is good, you know? And for bow hunting to be ethical, it's like you need to prove that it's not like, we always talk about it like a sport. Well, the minute you talk about it being like a sport, it's like we're enjoying killing.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And so when we're worried about like buck sizes and non-residents coming to my state, it's like, people, we got bigger things to worry about here. Like 20 years from now, and all that it takes is one state to do it.
Mm-hmm.
California does it. I mean, all of a sudden Washington does it and New York does it. And it's like, it's just a dwindle effect. And I know like there's a bunch of people sitting in Illinois and Iowa that are like, they're talking to all their neighbors, which is a bunch of people just like them, so they don't hear any different. You know what I'm saying?
Yep, I get
like,
it.
Oh, that's impossible to happen. Yeah, I've never even heard of that. It's like, well, yeah, no shit. Like, it's because you live in a town of 200 people,
right?
and everyone's doing the same shit you're doing. It's like, go to a big city and talk about something like that.
Yep.
I don't know. I just wish we would. It goes back to like Kurt Geyer talks about, like, quality pictures, like when you take a picture with a deer, put the tongue in, make sure there's not blood all over. It's like all those things I think do play a part.
100%. I'm on the same board. I've got buddies, good friends that are be like, why do you take the time to take these photos? And I said, because that's me respecting this deer, this animal that gave me so much. And I go as far as, my dad taught me as a young age, is you never step over a deer. I've never stepped over a deer, like belittling it almost. So I don't do that. I do feel bad this year when I did shoot my Iowa deer, when I walked up to it, the arrow was still sticking out of it. And you can see it in the film, but I do, I feel bad about that. Don't get me wrong. But you like to clean it up, respect them, it's a blessing to be able to do what we do.
Yeah, that's true. And that's why, like, when people talk about, it's not the anti-hunters that are going to take us down, it's ourselves.
Yep. Because we're so small.
We are,
yep.
We're beyond small, and man, they're hacking away little by little. I mean, it starts, Steve Ranella talks about it. Like, when they ban guns, like, so say there's a part of society that wants to ban guns. Well, they're not going to just be able to ban guns. So they got to pick away at it.
Mm-hmm.
So they ban 30-round clips.
Right. Yep.
Then they'll, what I'm saying? They'll ban handguns. Then
yep.
You know what I'm saying? That they pick away, and they do that in the hunting industry. So to do a vote where they're like, hey, should we ban hunting? Well, most of society realizes we need it for population control.
Right. Yep.
So they'll pick something. Well, how about mountain lion hunting with dogs?
They're gonna start going at the little things.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? And it chips away at things. And it's like, and so we got big issues like that going on. And yet we got petty guys worrying about what you shoot in Kansas.
Right.
Or a guy getting to hunt before I get to hunt, or someone using a crossbow. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
it's
I get it.
God, I think we have bigger things to worry about than stuff like this, and everyone just needs to go out and make their own adventure and
be positive. That's the first thing. Have a good attitude with it. Yep. Well, man, I hate to cut this short because we're having a good conversation. but my daughter's down here and she's wanting to hug Dad. She just got up from a nap, so.
Well, there you go. That's priorities.
Yep. But I appreciate you coming on and doing this, man.
Nope, sounds good, man. You have a good rest of the day, and it was awesome talking to you, and we'll keep in touch.
Yeah, let's do this again because I want to keep this conversation we had going here, keep going. So let's get together again sometime and get this thing going again, and we'll go from there. But thank you. I appreciate you coming on, and you have a good rest of the day as well.
All right, we'll see you, Aaron.
And there you have it. Another good podcast, episode 109 to be exact. Thank you guys for listening. Please go to iTunes, leave a 5-star rating, and leave a review. It'd be greatly appreciated. Or if you listen to it on Podbean, you can leave a comment in that section. That helps out as well. Or on any platform that you guys, listen to the podcast on. So thank you very much. We got some cool guests coming up, in the next couple of weeks. Getting them out every week. So Justin will be back next week. So good to have him back on the podcast, do a little catch up. So thank you guys again. Good luck this turkey season. Mine's kicking in here this week, so hopefully get a bird down sometime soon. And thank you guys for the support. And we'll be right here next week on the Fall Podcast.